Okay, guys, want to see one of the most expensive speakers in the world? $1.5 million and some of the most esoteric associated equipment in the entire industry? Stay tuned. Okay, guys, welcome back to the channel. This could be my last video before I head off to Toronto to give you a lot more eye and ear candy at the Toronto Audiophile. I went for the first time last year. Great show. Actually, I'm going to be visiting also with Angela Gilbert-Young, who designed a custom amp for me. And he's been very active on social media since then. A lot of people have been promoting him, and I'll be visiting him for the second time coming up. So stay tuned for that. But before I get to all that eye and ear candy, the ultimate eye and ear candy is something I did while I was in Southern California. And this is now my third trip to Jim's home with the Acapella Sphaerons and the Berning amps, Dohmann Turntable, Robert Koda photo stage. You're going to hear about all the gear. And if you've watched my videos before, he has a second system out by the pool room. It's not going to be featured in today's video, but go watch my prior videos. This guy's had a phenomenal cost no object systems. And actually, that's one of the takeaways I wanted to tell you guys about, because yes, they're going to be knee-jerk haters. You know, when you talk about speakers like Acapella Sphaerons that now go for 1.5 million, you're going to have knee-jerk haters. You're going to have second guessers, people that want to be the smartest guy in the room and tell him what he needs to do. But this guy has actually been in the hobby for a long time. Actually, I learned he had like 6 or 7 systems in his massive house at one time, all of them at cost no object budgets. And he never got happy with what he was trying to accomplish. And that's one of the biggest takeaways I want to share with you guys. It's not just about showcasing $1.5 million speakers and very magnificent amps and turntables. That's part of it. But the key part is when he finally matched up with Rick Brown, who I featured in a prior video, and they started to work on what are his goals. What is he looking for? It may not be what you're looking for, and that's one of the takeaways here, but what he was looking for, he's a very avid classical music fan, especially Beethoven, and he goes to lots of concerts, and he wanted to recreate in his home that same sense of reverb he gets in the live venues. And a lot of those spatial cues and reverb aren't captured on the mic. Some of them are, and certainly if you have the Bach, you get a lot more of them, but he's not. He's a vinyl guy, and I haven't even mentioned the Bach to him yet. I don't go on these home visits to pimp products that I pitch. I don't. That's one of my rules. I don't do that. So I don't even know if he knows about the Bach yet. But in any case, he was looking for a realism that mimicked what he was doing in his classical venues in his home, and he was not able to do this all these years prior with many different systems. So Rick worked with him. Acapella Sphaerons, the Berning amp, the Dohmann Turntable, all of these things combined to give him finally what he wanted. Now, you will hear extra reverb a little bit when you hear us talking in that room, and that's a fair question. Where are the room treatments? And again, for everybody, it's not going to be their ideal room. But for him, it's actually much more sophisticated than a knee-jerk, what most people say, hey, I hear reverb, it's got to be terrible. No. If you really understand how sound works, reverb, if it's delayed in time far enough, it actually, your brain processes it. It does not corrupt spatial cues. Now, you still have that reverb, and that's if that's what you're looking for, like he is, a live venue that does have, you know, churches and many arenas and places where you hear classical music. It's extremely reverberant. And he wanted to recreate that at home. And if it's far enough in time, then you will not get corrupted imaging. What you really have to listen for is impulse responses and reflections that are very close in time with the initial impulse. So that's where you need to be a little more sophisticated when you watch these videos and look at, oh, the sidewall reflections are much further back in time. The ceiling is much further away. And they're very directional speakers, which on top of the time delay of these reverbs not corrupting things, he has his seating position much closer to the speakers. When you sit near field, then you are getting that impulse and you are hearing your speakers versus your room and the reverb. Those are much more further delayed. Now, if he sat way far back in a big room, then yes, then that reverb would become more problematic. But this separates the high IQ audiophiles from the knee-jerk audiophiles that just say, hey, that's a terrible room. It still may not be the room for you, but you have to understand that it's not as bad as it seems, and it may be ideal depending on what your goals are. So the combination of a seating position plus the delayed reflections and the type of directional speakers he's using make total sense. And that's why pairing up with a guy like Rick Brown, who has that experience to put the system together, he was able to consolidate and sell all these 6-7 systems he had before. And now he has this system and almost a mirror baby brother of it in his pool room system. Although he is going to replace the acapella speakers there with Ulcivox, because in that room, the Ulcivox may be better, but we'll see. And I'll be out there for sure. But I want you to hear this and see this room, because get the details from Rick Brown in case you haven't watched my prior videos, and for the changes they made. Because one of the biggest changes, and another thing that people may knee-jerk make an assumption about, he added subs. And when you look, 2 subs, and when you look at the Acapella Sphaerons with that huge bass tower, you think, why would he need subs when you have that huge bass tower? And that's actually a good question. Anybody should ask that question and get the answer. If you don't know, right off the bat, the reason that he needed the subs is not for extra bass. And a lot of times I've told you guys, and JR as well, when he puts 5 subs, 4 subs in the room with a swarm, it's not to get more bass. It's to even out the bass. And in Jim's case, it's not even so much to even out the bass. The other advantage of using a sub is that you can offload the excursion of these drivers for your mains, take that off the plate of these woofers. Same thing with the Acapella Sphaerons. And even more importantly, take that load off of your amplifier. He has found the amplifier of all the amplifiers that he's tried, cost no object, that he loves. The Berning amp, this set amp that is one of Richard Harley's best amps in the world. He loves this amp as well, but it's only 20 watts. Now, with Acapella Sphaerons and their efficiency, it was fine driving the bass towers plus the horns and the tweeter. But even when I heard it the first time, when you play it super loud, you could tell it was probably getting to the end of the headroom that the Berning could do. And what they were able to do to get that next 1%, 2% of performance was add these subs, take away the very lowest registers. These subs have their own amps. So now the Bernings are still driving the bass towers and the horns and the plasma tweeter, but now it has so much more headroom, because almost all the power that your amp needs often is to drive the woofers and the low frequencies. And so just taking the load off improved everything versus adding subs for amplitude. So that answers the question that many knee-jerk people may say, why do you need subs? And again, this is the type of stuff I like to bring to you, because this is showing not just $1.5 million gear randomly thrown in a room for no reason. There is a reason, a rhyme and reason to everything that was done there, and anytime they improve things, and I want to showcase that as much as the gear. But here's a walkthrough with Rick Brown on all the gear there. If you haven't watched prior, I'll link the other videos that I've done in the past, as well as the interview with Jim, the owner. I think you'll really appreciate this guy and what he's trying to accomplish. Enjoy, guys. Okay, guys, you may not have seen my prior video, so if you have, a lot of this will be redundant, but there have been some cool changes. Wanted to get you up to speed either way with Rick Brown walking through this amazing system, either the $1 million Acapella Sphaerons.
Well, they were
plus,
a while ago.
Oh, now they're even more.
And who's counting?
And then this system has also changed in probably price tag as well. So I wanted Rick to go through it in detail, because one of the great things about this is having somebody like Rick and Steve McCormick to help put this together. It's not just about buying gear off the shelf. It's about the synergy that's created. Everything to get that utmost performance requires expertise and experience. So Rick, let's just walk through the equipment, though. I know a lot of people are interested.
We'll begin with the Acapella Sphaerons loudspeakers from Germany. And one of the things that makes these a unique horn loudspeaker system is that they have one amp to drive the entire loudspeaker. So it's not where you have the typical solid-state amplification that runs the bass modules. Not in this case. In this case, it's designed for a single amp to drive the entire loudspeaker, and it's about 100 decibels, 1 watt, 1 meter. What we've also got in here is a very unique tweeter, which you can kind of get the idea. If you get closer, you see how
plasma.
You see the plasma tweeter? Yeah, you can actually see
like a flame.
It's like it is a flame. It is like a flame. Yeah.
Massless. Yeah.
Exactly, and it has its own vacuum tube amplification for each one of those.
Okay.
And that, as far as I'm concerned, is really about as good as a tweeter can get, a massless tweeter. So that's another very, very significant part of this loudspeaker. What we've also done, even though the loudspeaker, just physically when you look at it, you get the immediate impression it ought to play incredible bass. It does indeed, but we've added the Dohmann Sovereign subwoofers from Global. And these allowed dialing into the room, which in this instance, Steve McCormick did the dial in with the room. Because if you come around the back, let me see if I can show you. You can see the flash drive that's in there, so that we're not on the internet with these. It creates its own network, which is very handy for people that buy these kinds of pieces of equipment, because often they have so many things that are on the internet that things get really bad. The traffic gets to be too much. So that's one of the uniquenesses of this product. So what Steve did in dialing these in was take it to one more level, which I want to show you, is that he's built an RC network. If you can come back here, you see this black bag?
Yeah.
It actually has a RC network that's allowing us to, these amplifiers from Berning only see 60 hertz and above.
It's like a high-pass filter.
High pass, 6 dB per octave. So now we've got a situation where the amplifier is driving this entire loudspeaker to 60 hertz.
Gotcha.
Below that, we come into the Dohmann subs.
Yeah.
It allows for tremendous linearities above, which you can hear as you were listening a little bit earlier. We transition over to the amplifier. We're back to the David Berning Hi-Fi 1 single-ended triode, 20 watt per channel SET amplifiers. And these, of course, you've talked about before because they do have the outboard silver wound chokes by the people at
they're in the back here.
Yes.
But they're Ypsilon.
Yes. Ypsilon and Grace.
It was a conglomeration of three
right.
experts: Steve McCormick, David Berning,
Correct.
And Ypsilon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without those three, it wouldn't be possible. So that does, what we have is unique in the context of being a single-ended triode amplifier that's also output transformerless, Class A, zero feedback. And we can use a linear tube instead of the nonlinear tubes that other OTLs use, 211 or 845 switchable. Moving over to the front end. Recently, Mark Dohmann was here. This is the Dohmann Turntable. Mark has set this table up. The cartridge was set up by WAM Engineering, JR.
Yep, we've seen JR on my channel.
Well, we see JR all the time here. He's been here many times. In fact, I got to give JR a shout out because he balanced the tweeters in this room, which was very difficult to do. It may sound simple, but it was not. So he came in and spent a day getting the tweeters balanced in the room. And we've got a Lyra low output cartridge, and then we've got the Robert Koda, in my opinion, incomparable Robert Koda phono stage. And then we've got the SMC Hi-Fi 1 line stage, which as far as I'm concerned is incomparable as well as a line stage. But of course, we're a bit prejudiced, aren't we?
Well, Steve's here. We got to say that. Yeah.
Steve's here. Yeah. And then this is a brand new unit. It's a DA2i from Emmlabs. It has a built-in streamer, and this just happens to be one of the first 3 units that was delivered last week.
This is brand new, hot off the press.
Let me illuminate the front to show you because it's just off now, but it does have a built-in streamer. So you can see that, and if we went over, the streamer part is built in as well. If we went over to if we went to the net, it's not locked right now, but it does have a streamer in there as well, which is brand new for them. It's the very first thing they've done in that regard.
And performance-wise, we've already had good anecdotal reports from the owner, Jim,
Exactly.
and yourself. You've got this piece as well. So
And last but not least, is we went about cabling. So we've
The
got
Enklein.
all the AC cabling in here is the SHTs from David Kleinbeck at Enklein Cables. And then there's a combination of interconnects in here with other manufacturers. In one instance, we're looking at glass cable that's from another company, AT&T glass from another company. And we do have our Nexus.
Yeah,
That's our
SMcAudio Nexus.
AC and grounding device that we're using. And I think that pretty much sums up the electronics. There's a lot.
Yeah, I've got more videos if you want to learn more about especially the Berning. This is a very unique project. You rarely see three minds of different ilks and experiences combined on one project, and that's one thing that got to give credit to Rick putting that together. This is a unique project, a unique conglomeration of talent and performance that you don't see. True bespoke, high-end. These aren't cheap, but what do these run about?
230.
But
yeah,
you
if you
can
just want to run through the prices. These speakers nowadays are about $1.5 million plus.
$1.5 million,
Turntable's
okay.
about $80,000.
80.
The phone stage is 74. You're looking at 90 for the SMC line stage. You're looking at 35 for the DAC. And this is out of production, their SACD transport, but if it was in production, it'd probably be in the 35 ranges.
Now the Lyra Atlas is pretty reasonable, relatively
It is,
speaking.
yeah. These days it runs about $14,000.
And what is the Saphir tone
About 25,
Okay.
25,000.
So yeah, but we're talking about not over attention to ridiculous chassis work. We're talking about a true attention to detail. Obviously beautiful chassis work, pristine work, but what's inside, everything from a minus cape platform inside the Dohmann turntable,
Absolutely.
everything under the hood of the Berning amp. If you've seen my prior
custom
video, it's
HRS
just
react.
beyond reproach. Same thing with the SMcAudio preamp, and Emmlabs has been the standard setter for anything SACD forever. And DAC's been the leader. And then these speakers are incredible, and there's just no way to get this kind of scale and realism and dynamics sometimes without this kind of
I'm really
efficiency.
glad you mentioned that because this room is the #1 component.
Oh, yeah.
Beyond all the electronics, it's this room. This room gives us the feeling of scale and grandeur.
Right.
And the flip side of the coin is that often in a room this size, the bass can get lost.
Yeah.
You know, in this kind of room. And that's really the reason that we've gone to the way we've delineated the bass in this room to make that work.
And really, this is a room where there's going to be a lot of knee-jerk experts that try to think that it needs a lot of treatment and that the voice is echoey. But when your first reflection points, like in this room, are so far away, your brain already knows how to deal with those reflections such it doesn't corrupt the imaging. And then it gives you, like Jim loves, the sensation of being at a live concert. And a lot of those spatial cues come through in the recording, but this venue gives you similar to a venue if you were talking in a venue where instruments are playing. So it gives you that realism, extra level of realism that knee-jerk people might think it needs to be deadened. Yeah, and this is where you have to have your goals. You have to have what type of music you listen to. And Jim had many systems, many different rooms with systems, and until he got connected with Rick and put together a plan to address what you really wanted and things that you value. And you were telling me as well, it's just not only being able to hear things, it's being able to like what you hear different. And that's what you've achieved here and continue to achieve with this.
He definitely wanted to tell you something that we just
Okay.
had happen recently. Yeah. Okay.
The goal from the beginning was to just hear all the instruments of the orchestra, and long before I thought about how they were produced and how to get there, I just couldn't get there other than get closer and closer at an orchestra. And the closer you get, the lower down your seat becomes. I used to get in the second or third row in the concert hall in Detroit, but your head is at about the level of the piano seat.
Okay.
So you hear the piano very
Right.
loud, but it drowns out the
Sure.
sounds. And then somewhere in all of this, Rick and I started getting together because I didn't know anything about him or this stuff or anything, but we got together and slowly and steadily over the years, even though I had this tinnitus that had been plaguing me, it started somehow or other, this tinnitus goes away and my ability to hear gets better. In the economic world,
Wow.
it turns out, well, at some cost, it gets better. So,
Okay.
so this is not cheap gear.
No, it's not
you can
cheap,
tell. But
What?
if you believe in yourself and the ability to get that next round. So eventually it just hit me when I'm at the orchestra. I still hear that kind of consolidated sound, and I'm thinking, but wait a minute. The recording is a microphone. We've talked about this before. The microphone is 8 or 10 feet away from the concert master or the conductor. And the conductor is the guy who knows time for you violinists to get closer, time for you violinists to get farther. He knows everything. So if that's where the music is really coming from, what are we doing when we come to the concert? And the answer is nobody in the concert is hearing those details because they're all part of a consolidated sound. But what if you just really wanted to hear it in a smaller orchestra? Now in this recording that we're about to play, I believe there's only 45 or 50 people. It's a smaller hall. But the capture of it and the smallness of it makes it possible for all of these individual instruments, and particularly in Beethoven, who likes to have dialogue across the woodwinds and things like that. So anyway, gradually the more Steve and Rick and that body of people, they got to where we're getting closer and closer to exactly what is coming off of those microphones, and we're joining in with the orchestra conductor to be able to capture it, and we're putting it on the system that's gone through a lot of changes to get to that point. And for a small number of people who really like it, and 75% of the people are not really, oh no, they don't like that, which is wonderful because we all hear differently and we like different things. So that's basically it. But in the most recent, what has it been, the last 6 months really?
Yeah, about that.
Just changes across the board, changes in cabling, changes in the gear, the addition of the subwoofers to take the pressure off of the rest of the
burnings
system.
and
So
everything.
suddenly we're getting a real balance of the sound. So that's it. And in this cut that we're going to take from the last movement of the Fifth Symphony, we'll hear it right away from the very beginning almost. This little piccolo that's sitting up there, and while Beethoven does this in a lot of different symphonies and such, it's part just getting at that piccolo, which I'd never heard in an orchestra before, and all of a sudden it's not only there but throughout our other things. So that was the goal, and we have basically just got.
And you're happy with it.
And I might add though that commensurate with this has been vinyl versus
SACD, CD.
solid state. So Rick has throughout been, vinyl. But he's also created the gear that has made that digital follow all the way up to where we are right now. I'm not sure I tell the difference. In fact, we haven't even done this.
That's what we're going to do, this comparison.
So I say to all of you, you make up your mind, listen we did this a little like it a couple of weeks ago, and we weren't sure whether we were hearing 3 piccolos or 1. But we came over here, and it became very clear, was it 3 or was it 1? We'll see if you can tell.
Okay.
By the way, Jason, the client is always right.
Of course. Well, but here we have a client that actually listens to a lot of live music. You listen, so the reference is a lot better when you're constantly at concerts. Now, obviously, you're not sitting where mics are, so there's always going to be a variability equation, but at least you have a level of appreciation that a lot of audiophiles don't have when they listen to a recording. So we're going to compare Beethoven's Fifth, the Fourth Movement, in SACD versus vinyl. Okay.
Yeah. The only thing, do we want to play all the way through and one and then all the way through the other? We have attempted in the past to kind of line it up. Okay. But I actually think that it's better just to let the whole cut play.
Yeah, let's just do that.
You can't line them upward.
Okay.
Okay. So
let's do that.